when John Morant dropped 47 points in game 2 against the Warriors, first off, just what was your take about that performance? And what do you think it could propel Memphis when the series transitions to San Francisco for game 3?
Dude, that's a man on a mission. That's a man amongst boys. That's a guy that's just straight hooping, man. Like that is an individual that is willing to carry his team despite the narrative, despite how the last series went, despite how game 1 went, whether that was a 1-point win or a 30-point win in terms of, in favor of Golden State. I'm looking at this and I'm saying Ja Morant has everything he needs to go about bringing this team to a Western Conference Finals. I'm not saying Golden State's going to lose the series. I'm also not stating that by any means the series is over. What I'm saying is he's willing to give everything he has. He didn't shoot well behind the arc. Well, not really, not necessarily. He shot over 40%. It was 5 of 12. He's not necessarily known for being a shooter. But when you go out there and you log 47 points, 8 assists, and 8 boards at 23 years old, that is just absolutely insane. I think, Kyle, there was a stat that something along the lines of only 2 other players at age 23 or younger were able to drop points per game like this in the playoffs, or 40-point games. And I believe that was LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, which is quite the illustrious company to be a part of in postseason statistics in NBA history. But Ja Morant is just a guy on another level, man. He wants it. Like he's a guy that's dedicated. Like his swag to it, his drive, his absolute intensity on the court. Sure, he dances a little bit. Sure, he celebrates a little funny, but he carries and uplifts his team um, with that kind of emotion, and it shows, man. A lot of players love playing behind him. A lot of players play absolutely incredible basketball whenever it is that he strives and he does well, like most teams with a good point guard. But there's just something about John Morant that you gotta love, man. Whether it's his charisma, whether it's how he soars and flies through the air, or whether, quite frankly, it's just his overall basketball ability. The man can straight out play. 47 points is an example of it in a win to kind of seal, at least you guys were able to keep one game at home. And then you go and you look at the rest of this team, and this was just a tough, tough, tough fought game. Uh, Dylan Brooks was ejected early on with a flagrant 2 foul on Gary Payton II, and he ended up breaking his elbow. So MRI and details are soon to follow with that. Prayers up for GP2. Low key, high key, actually, a dirty play by Brooks. So I'll kind of leave that there. But next man up kind of always goes there. Jaren Jackson Jr., he had 12. You had Clark had 10. You had Williams with 14. There are just a number of players that were able to kind of step up and contribute to Ja's 47. And then you go and you look at the Golden State side and you say, well, they were shooting 18% from 3. That is absolutely horrible. They were 7 of 38. They could not get a single shot to fall. Andrew Wiggins had a poster, but outside of that, a very ill-efficient night. Steph Curry, he shot under 50%. He was 11 of 25. He was at 27 points. Klay Thompson logs 41 minutes, goes 5 of 19, 2 of 12 from the three-point line, 12 points. Unacceptable. Jordan Poole goes and gives 20 off the bench, but he can only do so much when the rest of his team isn't able to help. So overall, I think this series could potentially go the distance of 7 games. I am absolutely ecstatic to see where this ends up. But in terms of Ja Morant, boy, somebody better, y'all better start double, triple teaming him the second he crosses half court. 'Cause he's just, that man an animal, bro. He cannot be guarded, and it's it's a scary sight to see if you're a Golden State fan for sure.
I think it's kind of funny when I look at John Morant because one of the comparisons that I get with him is he almost kind of reminds me of Derrick Rose to an extent with just his athleticism and his ability to just find a way to get to the rim. And it really kind of showed in that fourth quarter against Golden State in game 2. Because there was a point in time when this game was really close. It was really kind of back and forth between Golden State and Memphis in the fourth quarter. But really, John Morant took it upon himself to be the focal piece for the Grizzlies to get them that win. I think, if memory serves me correct, he scored over 20 points in the fourth quarter by himself for Memphis, but he scored the last 15 points that Memphis put on the scoreboard to end the game. And a lot of these plays, I mean, he just drove towards the basket and was able to just contort his body to find a little bit of space and be able to lay it up. And a lot of times, they would put different guys defensively on John Morant. They would put Klay Thompson on him. They'd put Jordan Poole on him. They'd put Andrew Wiggins on him. I mean, Golden State was actually doing a pretty good job of showing different defensive schemes against John Morant. And it really just didn't matter. Ja was able to expose it. I mean, John Morant was knocking down 3-point shots against Andrew Wiggins. I mean, there was one play in particular against Jordan Poole where Ja just had it was like a spin cycle type play where he had Jordan Poole literally looking lost. I'm sure somebody has to give Jordan Poole a map because he's probably still lost after that spin cycle that Ja put him in. And even Klay Thompson. Klay got matched up against him, and Ja just beat Klay with his speed and was able to get to the rim fairly easily. And that's the thing, is that granted, I wouldn't say that Ja's shooting ability is his strong suit. His strong suit is definitely driving to the rim and just, either dunking the ball or just getting a nice easy layup or sometimes even a contested layup. I think that's where his game really thrives. And I think, as time progresses, his jump shot will improve, his 3-point shooting will improve over time. But I think when it comes to this series specifically, I'm not as sold on this series going 7 games like Kevin had mentioned. I do think that Golden State is still the better team. I still believe that Golden State's going to get to the Western Conference Finals over the Grizzlies. But Kev, I want to kind of propose this to you because this is kind of how I see something playing out with this series in particular. This series reminds me of a lot of when the Lakers were on their title run from 2009 to 2010, where they won back-to-back championships. That was when Kobe got his fourth and fifth ring. In the first round of the playoffs in that 2010 title season, they went up against a young Oklahoma City team. And this was back when the Thunder had Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. And they were the young kids on the block trying to prove something. And they pushed the Lakers in a pretty competitive way. Even though that the Thunder lost that series, I believe they lost that series in 6 games. They gave the Lakers a lot to work with and pretty much pushed them as far as you could really think a number one seed could go when they went up against the Thunder. And this is what this Memphis team reminds me of. Granted, the Thunder were probably a better shooting team when they went up against the Lakers in the early 2010s. But this team, when it comes to Memphis, they're young, they're hungry, and they're gritty. It's the grit factor that really is the difference maker for me with Memphis compared to Oklahoma City when they had KD, Russell, and James. Because really, no matter what happens, it doesn't matter if the Grizzlies are down by 15, 20 points or if it's like a 5-point deficit. Like they will find ways to get back into the game and take the lead extremely quickly. And I think when it comes to Golden State in this scenario, I think they realize that. I think they're fully aware of that going into games 3 and 4 back in San Francisco. And I do think that Golden State's going to have the edge over them. But John Morant is really that focal piece for Memphis to keep them viable. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Memphis actually splits a game against Golden State in either games 3 or game 3 or 4, excuse me. So all in all, I mean, this is going to be a great series no matter how it ends. I mean, I still have Golden State favored to win this one just because I think their experience and their veteran presence is going to be able to overpower the youth that Memphis presents. But when it comes to John Morant specifically, I mean, this guy's a stud. This guy is a superstar in the making if he isn't one already. And within a very short time frame here, I mean, John Morant could really be one of the faces of the NBA within a relatively short period of time because, I mean, when you put up 47 points against a team like Golden State in the second round of the playoffs and you do it in a win in convincing fashion, that's exciting to watch. I mean, it was a stellar performance from Ja overall in game 2, but they're going to need those types of performances to keep them in it in this series. I'm not saying that he's going to drop 47 points in games 3 or 4 moving forward, but if he could drop a 30 piece or maybe a 35 piece, that gives Memphis a very good shot to win one of these games in San Francisco, but I still think that the odds are stacked against them just because I think Golden State is a better. But it's gonna be very interesting to see how this series play out, and it's really because of what Ja's doing for Memphis. It's special, and I imagine it's gonna continue into the future. That's just how I see it.